Hello, it's Jeffrey Christian of CPM Group. It's early January 2024. I want to talk about truth and falsehood in the gold and silver markets. It's a topic that's near and dear to me. We have fought misinformation, dishonesty, misrepresentation in the markets really since the late 1970s, and it continues to be that way. It's going to be important as we discuss some of the things that we need to discuss this year. Obviously, truthfulness and falsehood are important across human spectrum, the spectrum of human behavior, from politics and economics and government to commodity markets. And it's a problem. My wife gave me this book on Lying in Politics by Hannah Arendt for Christmas. And there are a couple things that are in it that prompted me to say, as we look at 2024, as we look at the things that people want us to discuss, above ground silver, refined silver reserves, above ground in bullion form and coin form, silver use in solar panels, platinum group metals use in automotive, central bank gold buying. There are all sorts of topics that people have asked us to dwell on in our research, in our consulting services, and in these videos. And in each of those instances, and many of the other ones, there's a tremendous amount of misrepresentation and falsehood that distorts people's views of the gold and silver and platinum and palladium and rhodium markets. It's something that's there, and you have to be careful. So reading Hannah Arendt's book, and Hannah was writing about politics, and she quotes John Hobbes a lot. But the reality is that it also applies to precious metals markets too. And one of the things she said is no one, as far as I know, has ever counted truthfulness among the political virtues, which is pretty telling. She says in her, this is a book with 2 essays that she had written earlier. She says, truthfulness, honesty is a virtue, but probably not in politics. And there are certainly a lot of people in the precious metals markets who don't see honesty and truthfulness as a virtue. And one of her conclusions was that the result of consistent and total substitution of lies for factual truth is the sense by which we take our bearings in the real world, our ability to filter between truth and falsehood. And that is destroyed by the constant repetition of misinformation. That's propaganda 101. When I was in journalism school, the first year we learned about propaganda, and one of the things was, if you say something often enough, people will believe it, and they'll believe it's true. And that's a real problem in the gold and silver markets. Now, it wasn't the only gift that she gave me. She also gave me a bottle of fine cognac and a variety of other presents. So don't feel sorry for me that my wife gave me a book of old Hannah Arendt essays for Christmas. It was part of a broader package, including the cognac needed to wade through her writing. There's a spectrum of truth and falsehood. There is factual truth. These are things that can be factually known to be true. 2 + 2 = 4. And someone famous once said, as far as I know, not even God can say that 2 + 2 does not equal 4. People can say it, but it's not. It's factually untrue. Then there's rational truth. These are truths that society holds as true, that there may not be as factual as a mathematic axiom, but they are considered true by an enormous burden of evidence in the real world and over time. Then there's truth by degrees. And I've talked about this in earlier videos. There's censuses, surveys, estimates, and informed opinions. A census is where you try to measure everything. Let us go off and measure every ounce of gold or silver or platinum being refined from mine production and from scrap. You can't do that in the precious metals markets because of the secrecy surrounding a lot of refining, especially on the secondary side. You can do surveys where you say, okay, we have a list, CPM Group has a list of, I think, more than 200 or maybe more than 300 refineries around the world, precious metals refineries around the world. You can try to do a census, and we actually were talking with the Chinese government, the Chinese Gold Association, and other groups several years ago about putting together a black box census on refining, both from mine production and secondary recovery from scrap, for gold and silver. The Chinese government was very much interested in it, and in fact, they, being a communist country, have a very good system of getting exact data from every identified refinery within China. But on a global basis, there wasn't insufficient interest in doing this. A survey is, okay, you have 300 refineries and you have 50 of them that will talk to you and tell you what they're doing. And of those 50, maybe a dozen represent 85% of world refined metal output. So you can do a survey. You don't try to measure every ounce from every refinery, but you do a survey. Then there are estimates, which are like surveys, but perhaps with less data behind them. And then there are informed opinions. If you're somebody like CPM Group and you're steeped in the market every day and you see metal coming and going and moving around and being refined and being used and being resold and scrap being refined, you have a tremendous amount of knowledge about how that market works. And you can form opinions as to what may be going on based on your capacity to know how that market works. Truth by degrees. Then there are falsehoods by degrees. Uninformed opinions, yeah, that happens all the time. Guesses, that happens all the time. And conscious misrepresentations, and that happens all the time. And there are people and organizations and companies in the precious metals market that have made uninformed guesses in the past, distant past, realized that they made a mistake, but have declined over the course of years and decades. You know, in one case, I know one company has been made a mistake in, say, 1990, and has persisted in carrying that error forward in its data for 33 years, a third of a century. They know they're wrong. They've talked to us about it. They've talked to other people about it. They've looked into correcting it, but they are, for a variety of reasons, unwilling to actually say, you know what, we have been wrong in our representation of central bank gold, secondary recovery of gold, refining of gold, the factors that have influenced gold prices, gold and silver investment demand, and a host of other factors. We've been wrong for a third of a century, and we've known about it for most of that time, but we've never actually bothered to modify our data or our analysis to reflect that which we know is more accurate than what we've been saying. And that's a real problem. You know, from 1998 until 2001, CPM Group was advising a host of major gold mining companies. And these were companies that primarily were members of the World Gold Council. And they were looking at the gold market. This was 1997. The gold price had fallen sharply, and it was trading below $300 for most of the period of time, 1998 into 2002. And the mining companies were extremely worried about the low prices. And they were talking to us about why the prices were so low and why investors weren't interested in buying gold at that time and what they might do to encourage investment demand so that the gold price might rise. Many of them were losing money and borrowing money in order to stay afloat at that time. And we were talking about that which I've just been talking about, the plethora of bad information in the gold and silver markets, and how that limited a lot of investors' interest in pursuing gold investments. And they said, oh, you're talking about the conspiracy theory people and that. I said, no, I'm talking about major suppliers of data, would-be accurate data, statistics and analysis in the markets, as well as the conspiracy theorists and everybody else. That was 1998, 2001. We're in 2024, and as Billie Holiday would say, it still is true. These issues I want to bring up now because they're going to be germane to our discussions about silver use in solar panels, above ground refined silver inventories, central bank gold, and a host of other topics that we're going to be talking about over the course of the next year. That's all I have for now. We'll get back to you with some of those topics and some of the topics that we listed in our January 5th video about topics that we wish to pursue in the future. In the meantime, take care of yourself and those around you. See what you can do to help the world be a little bit better place.